A few weeks ago, I asked my subscribers for some video ideas that they would want me to make. A viewer named cbaro3 recommended, and I quote, "A look at the queens who won a certain type of challenge but later were in the bottom or eliminated on that same type of challenge." Hello, and welcome to RuPaul's Drag Race Rejudged, where today I will be ranking the top 8 of these Glowdown performances as well as some honorable mentions, and trying to explain what circumstances caused them. Starting us off in 8th place, we have Yara Sophia's alleged Glowdown in the All-Star 6 ball. On season 3, Yara was the only queen who could consistently go toe-to-toe with Raja in the sewing challenges. She beat Raja in the hairball and arguably beat her in the cake design challenge, although I go back and forth on how I personally would judge that one. While in a very technical sense, Yara was eliminated on a ball on season 3, I don't think anyone would seriously count that as a Glowdown considering the mental states the queens were in after what production put them through. The alleged Glowdown that I will be talking about here takes place on All-Star 6. Yara was just coming off of a semi-questionable win in the talent show and delivered a nice, average package in the ball. I don't think she was anywhere near the top, but while I won't name names, there were several queens weaker than her, and she is probably closer to the top than the bottom. I think the first cause for this Glowdown was Yara's momentum. Production really enjoys killing the momentum of whoever wins the talent show, and this can just be explained away as another example of that. The second reason, I guess, is effort. Yara spent a lot of time helping other people and less time working on her own dress, so I guess production might have wanted to punish her for that, I'm not really sure. My main question is here, and I hope you all can help me answer it, why even do this to begin with? I could kind of understand production trying to weaken someone like Mo Hart, who is throwing a wrench in their plans for the season, but why punish someone for a win that you forced on them? Ultimately, I'm putting this at the bottom of my list because while it is technically a Glowdown, Yara did fine in the challenge, and production manufactured it. The next Glowdown I will be talking about is what I would count as a Glowdown on technicality. In a very technical sense, Ongina won girl groups on season 1 and got eliminated on girl groups on All-Stars 5. The major difference between these challenges is that season's 1 challenge was largely lip-syncing in teams, while All-Stars 5 involved much heavier choreography, recording vocals, and verse writing. There is such a fundamental difference in these two challenges that I almost left Ongina off the list here. All of that said, I will give Ongina credit that her lip-syncing and dancing were spot on. As we all know, the issue here was that her verse was on the weaker side and she had blown out her voice, so she wasn't really able to do much vocally to make up for it. I'm including this on a technicality, but it is so far down on the list because the challenges are just so different. Moving on, we have the original All-Stars Challenge Glowdown, Tatiana on the Snatch Game. Going into this episode, 6 of the 9 queens had been in the top for Snatch Game, so the bar was really high. Adding to the pressure was the fact that Tatiana's Season 2 Snatch Game was a complete game changer. Her getting the win by going for comedy over impersonation has set a massive precedent we still see to this day. Unfortunately for Tatiana, a few things went horribly wrong when she came back for All-Stars 2. Number 1, production was gunning for her. As much as I love her, production absolutely cast Tatiana as filler this season, and I don't think they saw the same Park's performance coming. Since Tatiana was now a massive threat to their plan for the season, there was a very high likelihood of her ending up in the bottom no matter what she did. Number 2, her runway was not the greatest. It is a very minor thing, but having a more basic runway when in comparison to Katya and Detox was really just icing on the cake. Then finally, number 3, her delivery was off. If you go back and watch the performance, Tatiana had jokes. Her whistle tones killing the dog, licking the donuts, and so on. If you look back at just the transcript of the Snatch Game, she could very easily be safe. Unfortunately, in the moment, she was very quiet and subtle when she didn't need to be, and ended up getting really flustered when Detox was cross-examining her as Nancy Grace. In the end, I think Tatiana got flustered in the moment, and production used that to throw her out of the competition while they still had the chance. In 5th place, we have Ginger's Glowdowns on the All-Stars 2 and All-Stars 6 Rusicals. The Glamazon Airways Rusical was, definitely a challenge that happened, but I do think Ginger was my personal favorite. It was always going to be hard to live up to Courtney and Adore's performances the season earlier, but Ginger did a really good job. Unfortunately, Ginger would be in the bottom for her next 2 Rusicals for wildly different reasons. First was the All-Stars 2 Rusical where she played Catherine the Great. This was fine. It was definitely a downgrade from season 7, but the main things that killed Ginger here were production, runways, and strategy, not really her having a bad performance. Ginger was given a weaker role by production and thrown in the bottom to protect Alaska. Her runway was absolutely terrible and gave production their justification to get rid of her, and Alyssa playing strategically and going for track record over individual performance in that challenge led to her getting eliminated over Katya, who had a weaker performance. Next was the All-Star 6 musical where she played Fergie. This was slightly below fine. All-Stars 2 was Ginger getting screwed up by external factors, but this time she messed up by picking Fergie. I was a child in the late 2000s, so I spent a lot of time listening to Black Eyed Peas, but I can see through my personal bias and say that that does not make Fergie a good musical role. The main things Fergie is known for in a positive context are doing cartwheels, which Ginger can't do, and her stage presence, which Ginger didn't emulate. I love Ginger, but this was a massively unforced error, and she probably should have been in the bottom. I genuinely think that Fergie is in the bottom 5 halftime show performances that Ginger could have picked given her performing style. Now that we are halfway down the list, I'm gonna go over some honorable mentions. These are going to be queens who either did good not great originally, or production tried gaslighting us into believing they did badly. First is Jan in the girl group challenge. If we're being realistic, she should have been top 2 with Jada on season 12, so watching her completely miss the prompt like that was really disappointing. Second is Thorgy in the musical. I don't know what she did to come off as that much of a threat to Dayla or Trixie, but production really wanted her gone. Number 3 was Chi Chi in the musical. She won on season 8 and did an all-around good job on All Stars 3. She originally placed low, but I would honestly put her as high before putting her anywhere near the bottom. Number 4 is Candy in the roast. Her season 13 roast was great and her All Stars 8 roast was good. Candy Muse's roast is what I would call a glowdown by default. Then finally, we have Katya in the acting challenge. To this day, I don't know why they put her in the bottom here. Production didn't want her gone, and she wasn't even remotely bad, especially compared to Roxy and Alyssa. Next up is going to be Roxy Andrews in the All-Stars 2 Snatch Game. Roxy's original performance on season 5 was good, and I think if Jinx hadn't been there, she would have a great shot at winning. Nothing against Roxy, but I truly have no idea what went wrong here, so this section is going to be really short. As Katya said, this was Little League softball, and she had no arms or legs. My initial explanation was that she just got in her head or caved to the pressure of her previous run, but in All Stars 9 she was in a much better headspace and still did pretty bad on Snatch Game, so unfortunately, I feel like her Tamar Braxton is the exception, not the rule. While there is definitely a universe where she doesn't change characters and does a better job, given the caliber of this season, I think this was always going to be a pretty big step down from season 5. In third place, we have one of the most unfortunate entries here with Pandora Box's All-Star 6 Snatch Game. Pandora's season 2 Snatch Game was legendary and still holds up to this day. Sadly, there were a few major factors that took her down here. Number 1 is character choice. Pandora Box and Cheryl Canning are both comedians with a more vintage style, so playing her isn't a huge stretch. Pandora and Samantha Jones are much less similar as far as personas go. Number 2 is momentum. A large factor of improv is confidence, and while that's nowhere near the whole picture, it is a pretty big factor. On season 2, she had been in the top 2 of 3 weeks and was the clear best comedian going into the challenge. On All-Star 6, she had bombed the challenge, was not the only comedy queen in the Snatch Game, and had been floating around safe for a while as she hadn't gotten a positive critique in 4 weeks. Then number 3 is the competition she was up against. Assuming Pandora was second worst, the second worst critiques were Raja as LaToya Jackson, who did an amazing job. Pandora would have had to do amazing to not be in the bottom here, and I don't think she had the momentum, confidence, or production backing to do it this deep into the season. The second biggest All-Stars Challenge glowdown is one that I really don't see a lot of people talk about. It is Kennedy Davenport in the Snatch Game. Kennedy did such a great job on season 7 as Lil Richard and opened the door for male drag both in Snatch Game and the show at large. Unlike most of these other entries, I have no idea what went wrong here. This is not an example of production sandbagging someone, and I don't think Kennedy got into her head. I will preface this section by saying that I've never watched Real Housewives of Atlanta, but I did watch Phaedra on Traitors. I think Kennedy's fatal flaw here is that while she had a pretty good impersonation, she didn't have anywhere near enough comedic material to work with. Phaedra is a great and really charismatic TV personality, and Kennedy really played that down. I will give her credit though, if the timeline was different and Phaedra had competed on Traitors beforehand, she would have had significantly more material to work with. As it stands, I think Kennedy made a similar mistake to Trixie in that she prepared a lot of references to the character, but not a lot of jokes. Finishing off this list, we have kind of a 2-for-1, Manila in the All-Stars 4 makeover and Latrice in the All-Stars 4 acting challenge. Latrice won the acting challenge on season 4 and is almost definitely on the Mount Rushmore of Drag Race acting challenges. Then she returned for All-Stars 4, clawed her way to the final 5, and delivered an average acting challenge performance. Unlike with Manila, I know exactly what went wrong here. An acting challenge on a show like Drag Race isn't like regular acting. They're fundamentally a scripted comedy challenge. An incredibly vital factor there is the comedy aspect. All-Stars 4 production forgot to include that, so even the queens who were in the top were still relatively weak compared to a lot of previous challenges. I don't think production set out to screw Latrice personally, but they did set out to screw whoever got that role, and Latrice was already in a really bad position with her track record. The main reason I'm putting her so far up on the list is not just her ties to Manila, but because Latrice is a Drag Race acting challenge legend, and this was just a really unfortunate note for her tenure to end out on. Finishing us off this list, Manila won the makeover on season 3 and was one of the first great runway queens of the show, even if in the end Raja kind of overshadowed her in that regard. I love Manila, but to this day I have absolutely no idea what she was thinking. She had 3 wins, was the clear frontrunner in the competition, and was also in contention to be the runway queen of the season. Every single episode, her runway was great, and she was regularly trading blows with Naomi, who is probably my favorite fashion queen the show has ever had. Some of the reasons thrown out by CBAR03 were riggery, stress, sabotage, inner sabotage, and simply because they weren't in the top, and so on, but I think Manila just made a really bad judgment call this week and it cost her the competition. The main reason I'm putting it at number 1 on this list was because of how dramatic her elimination was and how much of a game changer it was for the All-Stars format. This is probably the biggest butterfly effect challenge flop there has ever been.